group, that means whenever we have any of the business in which suppose you have created few instances. Let's suppose I have created 5 instances. Now tomorrow if my business is going to increase, so I want to have the auto scaling features that based upon the traffic generating. So I want to increase or decrease the number of instances. So that falls under the auto scaling group. So let me share the screen so that we can start with our auto scaling group. So is my screen shared? Yes. Okay. So, beta, we are going to start with another topic, and once we discuss this auto scaling group, then we'll try to see in a practical that how auto scaling group is going to work. Moreover, the additional functionalities that this auto scaling group can be attached to your load balancer. Okay, so this auto scaling group can be attached to your load balancer, and moreover, beta, as such, we do not have any price for the auto scaling group. So this is free of cost. So you can have the auto scaling group established free of cost, but whatever services you are using inside this auto scaling group, like if you're using the instances, if you're creating the EC2 instances, that may be chargeable, but as of now, the creation of auto scaling group, this is free of cost. Okay, so we'll see that. So it is written what is an auto scaling group. So let's first of all understand in real life the load of your website and application can change. So that means let's suppose it's a month of October and Diwali is round the corner. Okay, and we are going to have a big billion day sale or Amazon Great Indian Festival sale. So likewise, in during those hours, we know all the e-commerce websites will have a lot of traffic. Okay, so in real life, the load on the website and application may change. So that is not always mandatory that it is you are going to have the same load onto the website, or basically on the weekend. Suppose on Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday, you will have the more number of users that are accessing YouTube, Instagram, or any such platforms. But on the Monday to Friday regular basis, the number of users that are accessing those services may be not that much. Okay, so what we can conclude from this one, that in real time, the your website or application can have a different number of users that are accessing that application. Okay, now in the cloud you can create and get rid of servers very quickly. Now that means suppose, but if big billion day, let's suppose take an example of big billion day. Now I know for 1 week the big billion day is going to be now let's imagine, suppose there are 100 users. Okay, let's take a simple example. There are 100 users that are accessing my website from Monday to Friday, but on Saturday and Sunday, let's suppose I have 500 users. So 5 times number of users are going to increase on weekends, but on day basis, on working days, it is only 100 users. So that means on Saturday and Sunday, I need to increase the number of instances so that I am able to take more load. So that means in cloud, we can create and get rid of the servers very quickly. So very quickly we can create number of servers, and in the same way we can reduce the number of servers when it is not required. When the sale is over, you do not need to have that much servers. You want to decode, you want to get rid of it. Okay, so that is the benefit of auto scaling group, that automatically you can scale in when there is a more traffic onto your website, and automatically you can scale down when there is less traffic onto the servers. So this is the first point. The second point is the goal of an auto scaling group, which is by the way referred to as a ASG, is to, what is the goal of auto scaling group? Scale out. Scale out का मतलब increase करना. Scale out means to increase, to add EC2 instances. And when you say that I'm going to scale in means to reduce, कम करना, to remove the EC2 instances. Okay. So the goal of auto scaling group is to scale out. That means to increase, to match the increased workload. Okay, so if it is there is an increased workload, you can scale out the number of instances. Then when you have a decreased workload, you can scale in the number of instances. So that's a primarily two functions of the auto scaling group. You can either add the instances very quickly when the business is going to increase, or you can remove, you can scale in the instances when there is a decrease in the load. Okay. The third point is ensure we have a minimum and the maximum number of machines running. Along with it, ASG auto scaling group, what it ensures, beta, it ensure that at any given point of time, there needs to be the minimum number of EC2 instances running, and there needs to be the maximum number of instances running. Okay. So beta, if you suppose you have the 0 instance, on left hand side you have a minus infinity, and on right hand side you have the plus infinity. Now there should not be the case that you can add infinite number of instances, so that should also not be the case. And there should not be the case that you can have the 0 instances, so both the extreme cases are not allowed. Okay. So we need to ensure that we can have a minimum as well as maximum number of machines that are running. Okay. So auto scaling group, this ensures that let's suppose if I'll say the minimum number of instances should be 2. Okay. So even if I have a very minimum traffic onto my servers, I need to have the minimum at least 2 instances running. Okay. And the same way I can specify the higher number. Now let's suppose no matter how big the traffic is going to be, no matter how Puneet is going to admit, okay, no matter how big the traffic is going to be, no matter how many instances you are going to create, you always need to specify the maximum number. Yani ki, let's suppose 2 is my minimum number, let's suppose 100 is going to be my maximum one. So whenever I'm going to have any of the instances, minimum to minimum it needs to be 2, and maximum to maximum it needs to be 100. We cannot have more than that. Okay, I'm just assuming these numbers. So automatically register for new instances to the load balancer. Again, a very beautiful feature of the AWS, that let's suppose, okay, I'll explain this point with the help of a diagram. Automatically register the new instances for the load balancer. So let's discuss this using the diagram. But before that, let's try to understand. Now this is auto scaling group. Let's suppose you have the minimum size. सबसे पहले बेटा minimum size you have specified that okay, I need to have at least one minimum instance. So minimum value is given 1 minimum. And let's suppose the maximum, you can see it is written maximum. So from this point to this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have specified the limits that the minimum instance needs to be 1, and maximum to maximum, if I want to have, I can have the 6 instances. Okay. So minimum and maximum is specified. You always, your instances are going to vary between these two limits. Next important point is the actual size or the desired capacity. So these are the one that in the normal days you are going to have. Okay, let's suppose 10 instances are there which are going to run on my Monday to Friday basis. Okay, on weekends from this 10 instances I am going to jump to 100 instances. That is my maximum capacity. And if you want to remove the instances, then let's suppose I come down to 5. But still I need to be within the minimum boundary and the maximum boundary for the actual sizes that you are consuming. So I'll assume desired is 1, 2, 3. So I need to have 3 instances, which is my desired. Okay. Now when you want to scale out, suppose your business is going to increase, you are going to scale out as needed. Scaling out means, but what do you mean by scaling out? That I'm going to add the number of instances. So 3 instances was already there. So let's try to add 4, 5, 6. Now total I have increased the size from 3 to 6. So this is the scale out. When I'll say scale in means reducing the number of instances. So I'll remove the instances from here. Okay, so that's the important terms. What is the minimum value? What is the maximum value? What is the desired capacity? What is scale out and what is scale in? This is required to be understood. Now, better load balancer, the point that I was explaining you here, that automatically register new instances to the load balancer. Definition is going to be here. Now listen carefully. This is a web traffic that is coming in. This is a load balancer, and from this load balancer I have only 3 instances: instance 1, instance 2, and instance 3. Okay. Now when the traffic is going to be increased, let's suppose instead of 3 now I have scaled out and I have added number of 3 more instances, 4, 5, and 6. But these 3 instances automatically, when they will be added to these instances, load balancer will automatically figure it out that okay, we need to have a more instances, and it will send the traffic to this newly added instances. So you need not to do anything. It automatically detects this ELB, elastic load balancer, is going to detect this new instances automatically, and it will start sending the traffic to this newly created nodes. So that is what is written in this line: automatically register new instances to the load balancer. So that means ELB, your load balancer here, this load balancer automatically starts sending signal to this newly created instances. Okay, coming on to the next one. Uh, Coming on to the next one, that is auto scaling group. Auto scaling groups have the following attributes. Now, what are the main features or the attributes for the auto scaling group? Now, beta, all these attributes that are given, these are the attributes that generally we have when we'll try to create the EC2 instance. Okay, so these are the attributes that we have while we are going to create the EC2 instance. A launch configuration. Okay, so in launch configuration, what we used to have AMI, we used to have instance type. बेटा मैं जैसे जैसे बोलूंगा आपको याद आएगा. AMI will be Amazon Linux 2. AMI हम कौन सा यूज करते हैं क्रिएशन के लिए? Amazon Linux 2, that is operating systems. इंस्टेंस टाइप कौन सा यूज करते हैं? T2 माइक्रो हम इंस्टेंस यूज करते हैं. देन EC2 यूजर डेटा स्क्रिप्ट हम लिखते हैं. EBS वॉल्यूम 8 GB root volume that is attached. Security group that you attach at the time of creation of the nodes. SSH key pair, demo key pair 1, demo key pair 2 हम add करते हैं. So all these are the attributes that we need to have at the launch configuration. Okay, so whenever we'll be launching an instance, so these are the few configurations that we generally provide. So we have the minimum size, maximum size, initial capacity. This is the new one. I'll show you how we can reserve the minimum size, how we can have the maximum size, and how we can reserve the initial capacity. Then we specify which network or subnet information, load balancer if we have, and the scaling policy. So these are the few of the attributes that we generally consider at the time of launching an instance. But this time, today will not be launching the instance directly. We'll be launching it through the launch template. Okay, so today we'll be launching an instance through the template with which we can launch the multiple instances simultaneously. So let's try to see the auto scaling alarms. Now this alarm is, see, when I talk for the auto scaling, auto का मतलब बेटा automatic. Auto का मतलब automatic. Automatic means without human involvement, scaling needs to be performed. Now my system should be in such a way that on Friday evening it automatically scales up and on Monday it automatically scales down. ये जो काम है ये अपने आप होना चाहिए without my involvement. So that is the auto scaling. It happens with the help of an alarms. तो जैसे फ्राइडे शाम को बेटा अलार्म्स ट्रिगर होंगे, so the moment the alarms will be triggered, scale out operation will be performed. On Monday morning, when the alarm will be triggered, scale in operation will be performed. So auto scaling is always going to be performed with the help of an alarms. Okay, so we'll discuss the alarms, how to set these alarms. Now it is possible to scale an automatic scaling group based upon the CloudWatch. Even though we have not read about the CloudWatch as of now, अभी तक हमने CloudWatch पढ़ा नहीं है. Today I'll give you a brief introduction of the CloudWatch. By the way, these topics will come in the further course, but today we'll have an introduction to CloudWatch alarms as well. How we can set the CloudWatch alarms that are going to be triggered as per my wish on particular day, on particular time, particular week, particular month, when you want to trigger that alarm. So when the alarm is going to be triggered, auto scaling is going to be performed. Now this alarm monitors some metrics. Okay, now how this alarm is going to be triggered? Beta kaise trigger hoga? Such as average CPU usage. Now if I'll say that if let me write it here for a better understanding. If I'll say that if average CPU usage is greater than 40%. Now let's suppose if I'll give the condition like this. If I'll give the condition like such as if average CPU usage is greater than 40%, then trigger an alarm. So this is one of the metric by using which I can trigger the alarm. इस तरीके से और भी हो सकते हैं, दैट इफ द नंबर ऑफ यूजर्स, एक तो हो गया एवरेज सीपी यूजर्स, कॉमा यू कैन ऑल्सो हैव इफ नंबर ऑफ यूजर्स, लेट्स सपोज इफ नंबर ऑफ यूजर्स इज greater than 100, then trigger an alarm and launch the new instance in such a way that we can have all the metrics that you can ever think of. Using those metrics we can set an alarm, and which it automatically gets triggered when this condition is going to be met. If average cpu is greater than 40%, so this alarm will be triggered and a new instance will be launched automatically. अब दिस इज वन ऑफ द एग्जाम्पल, एवरेज सीपी यूजेज वन एग्जाम्पल है। दूसरा एग्जाम्पल क्या हो सकता है, नंबर ऑफ यूजर्स के बेसिस पे आप ट्रिगर कर सकते हैं, और देयर कैन बी अनदर वेज ऑन बेस्ड अपॉन विच यू कैन ट्रिगर द अलार्म. So this we'll see in the cloud watch how we can trigger the alarms. The third one is the metrics are computed for the overall ASG instances. So you cannot trigger for a particular instance. So whatever metrics you are going to define, such as average CPU utilization is greater than 40%, so it is applicable to the overall auto scaling group. So it is applicable to the overall auto scaling group. Now, based upon the alarm, now when the alarm is going to be triggered, what can happen? We can create a scale out policies or we can create a scale in policies. या तो हम increase कर सकते हैं, we can increase the instances or we can decrease the instances. So increase number of instances and decrease number of instances. Now when the alarm, let's suppose I had two instances already, alarm is going to be there. This is the alarm, it gets trigger scaling. I'm going to increase the instances or I'm going to reduce the instances. But are you able to understand? Are you getting these points?
Yes, sir.
These are easier topics, and we'll see this in a practical just in a minute, how we can have all this. Then we have the auto scaling rules. There are few rules that are monitored for the creation of the auto scaling. Okay. Now it is now possible to define better auto scaling rules that are directly managed by the EC2 instances. We can define our, see, there are existing rules, predefined rules as well that you can use. But let's suppose based upon your traffic, your business requirement, your number of usage, you can customize that as well. Okay. जो auto scaling groups हैं बेटा, you can either use the predefined provided by AWS, you can use that as well, or you can customize it also. Now it is possible to define better auto scaling rules that are directly managed by EC2. Target average CP users, this is one parameter. See, I was talking this point, okay, if average CPU usage is 40%, so this is one of the metric. बाकी metrics क्या हो सकती हैं, जैसे target average CPU usage, one metric. Number of request on ELB per instance. So एक instance पे कितने request जा रहे हैं, this can be the second metric. So if it increases, suppose one instance is processing 100 requests. Okay. Now next time 101 request is going to come, we want to create a new instance. So that can be the another metric. Average network in. So what is the number of the users or the clients currently connected presently? So networks के basis पे you can trigger or create the networks. And average network out, how many users are leaving the network. So based upon that, these are few of the metrics based upon which you can trigger the alarm. These rules are easier to set up and can make more sense, and that we'll see. Coming on to the next one, auto scaling, custom metrics. So I have told you already, either you can use the existing one, so new rules, and either you can customize it based upon your own business needs. So we can auto scale based upon the custom metrics like number of connected users. Send custom metric from application on EC2 to CloudWatch, put metric API, or create a CloudWatch alarm to react low or high values. We can set our own CloudWatch alarms for the different values, and we can use the CloudWatch alarm as a scaling policy for the automatic scaling group. Okay, so these are the uh, few of the points. Next comes the ASG brain dump. Okay, so read it once. Okay, so better let's try to have a practical. Okay, so let me go to the management console. Let me stop the screen share. Okay, and beta, by the way, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have got only 5 assignment 1. So Vikas, Shraddha, Ritupriya, Chaitanya, and Ajit Kumar. So make sure, beta, whatever you are going to do, everything is going to be recorded, and based upon that, your evaluations is going to be provided to the university. So be very attentive. Submit it today, the last day to submit the assignment. Till today evening, you can submit it, but you will not be able to submit it by tomorrow. Okay. So let's try to have the management console. Let me open the management console. This is, so this is Sahil Sharma dot. Give me a second. Okay. So this is, so the very first thing is I need to make sure I don't have any of the instances running. So there should be no instances. So no instances are there. And do we have the okay, so we have no instances running. So better, first of all, we'll be moving to the load balances. Okay, we need to move to the load balances, and if you'll see onto the left corner here, you'll see auto scaling, and here you'll see the auto scaling groups. So click on auto scaling groups, and then you will be redirected to create an auto scaling group. Okay, so click on auto scaling group, and you'll see here that you are supposed to provide the name here, auto scaling group name. Okay, you are supposed to provide the auto scaling group name here and a launch template. Beta, what is this template? Now every time, beta, if you are going to create a single instance, I'll not be moving it to the instance here, and I'll not be moving to instance and creating individual instance every time. I'll be making one template, and I'll be launching the instances from this template. Okay, so that I can do. So I'm going to write simply, you can write anything here. Let's write demo auto scaling group. Let's try to write demo ASD, and then we need to have a launch template. Now we can click on the launch template. So we need to click on the launch template, and you'll be redirected to the different page. Okay, now here you will see launch template name and description, launch template name. But this is the point that I was explaining you here. What are the points in the launch template? See, a launch configuration. So these are the point. Every time we need to have AMI which type of instance you are looking for, user data, volume, security, key pair, network, load balancer, scaling policy. So all these things we need to write down here. So launch template name, the very first thing is I'll be writing it the launch template name. So let's try to write the I'm going to write let's write my demo template, and beta make sure you don't have any of the spaces while writing the name, and let's write anything template, doesn't make any difference, auto scaling guidance. Okay, so then we have the template tags, and then the next one is application OS. Now you need to use the Amazon machine image. So up to now we have been using uh, so we are using the Amazon Linux. So I'm going to click on this Amazon Linux 2 AMI machine that is required, because of course this is a free tier eligible. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm using 64-bit cross 86 architecture. Everything is good. Instance type. See here, the next thing is I need to choose which instance type I want. So instance type, you need to don't include launch template. Yes, I want to have it. So let's include this. So I am going to use T2 micro. So there are a lot of instances. See, lot of instances type is there, but of course we'll be using free tier eligible T2 micro. So click on this, and instance type I'm going to use is T2 micro. The third is key pair. Now don't include key pair, but since we have already created one demo key pair, so I'll be using it. So this is a demo key pair. So let's have this. So whatever settings I'm saving in this template, so launch template. So next time I'll be creating one instances, all these things are going to be inherited in that instance. Okay, keeper is done. Then we'll have the network setting. Don't include the network template, I want to have it. And there are a lot of subnets. Or if we want to create the new subnet, let's leave this subnet portion as it is, and let's try to have the existing security group, create a new security, or have the existing one. So whatever security group we have it, so these are the lot of security groups we have already created. And let's try to have the launch wizard one security group. Okay, launch wizard one. Then everything advanced network information there, 8 gigs of RAM, free tier eligible, new volume, resource tag, nothing required. And then of course I'll move on to the advanced details and move all the way to down user data. Try to copy this code. So that means what I want is every time any of the instance is going to launch, this server is going to be launched automatically with every instance. So that is why I'm going to write this bootstrap command here. So let's create a launch template. Okay. So this is going to be created. This is created, and let's move back the templates created. I'm going to switch to the different window, create auto scaling, because we were creating a auto scaling group, and within auto scaling group we clicked on the launch template and we were redirected to this one. So we are not having any launch template. Let's refresh this. If we have this, now see my demo template, but the template that I have created just now here, I'll refresh this. I have got my demo template. Okay, now this template has got, I have got one message. Sir, can you send the user data in chat? It I have sent multiple times here. Okay. So the moment beta you click on launch template, you will get an auto template, because right now in front of you I have created this launch template. So when you refresh by going here, So you refresh and you have already got my demo template. Version is 1, of course. Template name, AMI ID, key pair is there, and then the launch name is there. Security group we have not applied, and then date created. Instance type is T2 micro. So all the things are there. Whatever request spot instances, we have not requested any of the spot instances, and the date it was created, it is here. Okay. Then I'll move on to the next, and I'll have the network VPC. By default it is allocated, and then I need to have the availability zone. Which availability zone I want? I'll have this one as well, this one as well, and this one as well. I have clicked on all three because I want to have an auto scaling group applied to all three regions. Okay. Now once this is done, I need to this is on the AP South 1, AP South B, and AP South C is done. And instance type, basic information is there. Demo template, which is default template, and instance type is T2 micro. And now let's try to click on the next. Okay. So otherwise, this is one more option, that is a overwrite launch template. Now, beta, one important feature is, now see, if some of the things that you have already written, if you want to override launch template, so whatever settings you haven't see, the step number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So different steps that are present here. Now, if you want to override the launch template, you click on the specify instance attribute. आप इसको change कर सकते हो, or you can manually add on the instances. T1 micro width and family generation, you can have it, or you can specify the instance attributes. कितने vCPUs, कितनी memories चाहिए, so you can specify all those things. Okay. So I need not to have this. Instance purchase options is there, 100% on demand. Spot instances कितने आपको purchase करने हैं, on demand कितने. So all these things are going to be present here. So I need not to have all these informations as of now. I'm going to keep everything to the default. Okay. And when you click on there, and let's click on the next. Now next comes the no load. Okay, now I can add. So if you have observed, I have told you I can allocate the launch template scaling group. Auto scaling group can be attached to the load balancer, which automatically going to detect. Now this is no load balancer. If you don't want to add, or you can attach an existing load balancer. Okay, so choose from the load balancer target group. Choose from the classical load balancers. Do we have any load balancer? No, we have removed it. Choose from your load balancer target groups. So we have removed everything. My target group 1, my target group 2, we have removed that. Attach a new load balancer. Let's try to create. Internet facing. HTTP, add a tag. No, remove. Okay. Health check, will be 300 seconds. Let's reduce it to 100 seconds. In yesterday's class, if you have seen, we had load balancer, classical load balancer, application load balancer we had created. If I would have not removed them, अगर बेटा रिमूव नहीं किए होते तो हम लोग जैसे यहाँ पे क्लिक करते अटैच टू एग्जिस्टिंग लोड बैलेंसर, this could have been here. But right now, since I have removed it, either you can click on here no load balancer, यहाँ पे भी आप क्लिक कर सकते हैं, or you can attach it to the new load balancer. So I'm going to create a new load balancer with the few settings that we have already seen. Health check is there, additional setting, enable group matrix collection with the CloudWatch, enable default instance warm-up. Okay. So let's remove as it is. Let's click on the one or more fields the information is missing. Okay, default routing, select a new existing target group, create a target group. Okay, new target group name, demo SG1. Next, confirmation, group size and scaling policy. Now the units is given. Better now you can specify the group size in terms of you can number of units or memory or the CPUs. Now you can get, there are multiple ways in which you can specify group size. Now if I'll say number of vCPUs, कितने CPU चाहिए? Minimum I need to have 2 CPU. Desired मेरे पास let's suppose desired 3. Minimum I need to have and maximum, let's suppose I'll write 10. So this is my configuration. I need to have V CPUs, number of CPUs that I want to have. This is one of the way, or you can have it in terms of the units. Okay, number of instances units. So let's suppose desired capacity. Normally on working days, I'll be working with 5, but minimum to minimum, even if there's no traffic, I want to have 2 of my units running. But maximum, let's suppose I'll have the 8 or 7 maximum capacity. Okay, so you can specify desired minimum maximum capacity as we have discussed here. So you can decide the minimum one and maximum one and the desired capacity. So this is what information you will get it here. Okay, now once you have got this
Sir,
information, yes,
sir, in my device, it did not ask for desired capacity type.
Vishal, what's the question beta, can you repeat?
सिर्फ मेरे में डिजायर्ड कैपेसिटी टाइप के बारे में नहीं दिखा रहा है ऑप्शन वो।
क्या क्या ऑप्शंस आ रहे हैं?
और सिर्फ डायरेक्टली आ रहा है डिजायर्ड कैपेसिटी, मिनिमम क्या है, मैक्सिमम कैपेसिटी। मतलब वो साइज पूछ रहा है, सिर्फ टाइप नहीं पूछ रहा।
टाइप नहीं पूछ रहा।
ये सर लाइक
दैट
अब में जिससे वो वी सीपीयू लिखा
हाँ
हुआ आ रहा है ना, वो
हाँ हाँ हाँ
यूनिट,
हाँ।
वो वाले ऑप्शन नहीं आ रहे मेरे। ये वो दिस इज
ग्रुप
फॉर
साइज के अंदर
डिजायर्ड
डिजायर्ड।
कैपेसिटी टाइप।
Okay, okay. So if you can have the desired better by default. So this is, I am not even going to use the CPU or the memory. So I'm simply going to use the default one, which is going to be units. Units simply means the number of instances. Okay. So I am going to desire this desired capacity. Let's reduce this. Desired capacity is, let's suppose, uh, 2. Minimum capacity is 1, maximum capacity is 3. So I'm going to change this for the easier one. Now scaling policies, choose whether you like to scale policy dynamically resize the auto scaling group to meet the challenges demand. Yes. Target tracking, let's keep it as the none, so I don't want to have it. Okay. uh, let's change the value 1, because we'll be launching an instance, so it will be easier. So let's keep the rest of the scaling policies optional, and let's click on the next. Now add notification, no. Let's click on the next. Add tags, no. Let's click on, these are the optional services. Okay. Launch template. Then we have the version launch template. My demo template is going to be there. And then we have the availability zone is there. Instance type requirement, vCPU 0 minimum, no maximum, and instance purchase option. So all these are options that we have already got. Instance type, notification, create on auto scaling group. Okay, so I'm going to create on auto scaling group. Oops. So instance requirement for the mixed instance policy override does not match with the instance type in the availability zone AP South A South. Okay, some instance requirement in the mixed instance policy. Hmm, okay.
सिर्फ मेरी क्रिएट हो गई।
Mm-hmm. Instance requirement. I'm going to quickly do it once again. seconds. Done. So it is done better. So we are able to create auto scaling. Amazon is a certain one. Demo SD load balancer target group. Listeners created successfully. New target group has been attached to automatic scaling group. Okay. So the template is there. Version default updating capacity. So it will take certain time. Availability zone AP South C, B, and A. So all three availability zone is there. So let's wait for a couple of minutes so that it will be activated, because we have written the user script also. So it will take some time to bootstrap and to be active. So you see automatically beta instance one is there, and let's create on demo ASG. Desired capacity one, minimum capacity, maximum capacity. Now beta your auto scaling group is already created, and tomorrow let's suppose you want to change any of the capacity, click on edit. You can change the capacity to 2, 3, whatever capacity you want, you can change it from here. Okay. So that's the option available. Demo ASG is there. Launch template is already created, and from this launch template, you are going to launch the instances. Which of the instances is going to be launched? T2 micro, and security group is not there, and uh, it is present here. That the key pair name is demo key pair, which is present. And then let's scroll the and load balancing activity. Let's move on to the next one, activity. Okay. Now here the interesting things are going to happen. So as of now, you'll see no instances there, but since I have written details one instance, so if nothing is here, so I need to click on refresh. You will see one of the instance is going to be launched here automatically. You'll see. So updating load balancer target group success status reason added. So these are the targets. But read this successful this one. So it has written user request created for the auto scaling group, changing the desired capacity from 0 to 1. So from 0 to 1 means we had 0 instance. From 0 to 1 instance we have created, because the minimum capacity that I have set is minimum capacity is 1. So the moment auto scaling group is created, the number of instances moved from 0 to 1. So this is the time frame given. An instance was started in response to the difference between the desired and the actual capacity, increasing the capacity from 0 to 1. So this is what action is performed. So it is written here. Okay. Now let's click on the refresh. Okay. So notification, you will get it. And sorry, not here. In history you will have this. Activity history is there. Launched new instance. Then let's go to the next one, automatic scaling. This will do in a while. Internet instances management. So they see the desired capacity, and when you go to the instance management, you'll see instance ID. This instance is automatically created. Life cycle, which is in service. Okay. Instance type is T2 micro, and from where it is generated, it is from the launch template. So my demo template say beta this is created. And even if you'll go to this instance, so if I right click on this and move to the new tab, you will see here that one of the instances we were having no instance running. So we have already got one instance running, and availability zone is given, public IP is given, everything is there, security group is given, demo key pair, launch time. So let's try to see. Here it is written auto scaling group name ASG. So this is created by the auto scaling group name. So I'm close this and move back to auto scaling group. So one of the instance you will see here is automatically created. Now if we'll click on this particular instance, okay, so instance this is running, and this is by the auto scaling group. So this is done. We have seen it already. So then let's move on to the next one and move to the target groups and see. We have got one AST demo target one created, and here you will see we have got uh, instance type, and if we click on demo ASG, and you will see it is unhealthy. So this might take some time to be healthy. Why it is written unhealthy, this instance is unhealthy? But there are only two reasons: either the user script is not proper that you have written, or there is going to be some issues with the security groups. Okay, so it might take some time to get healthy. Will come up here in a while. Targets monitoring, health checks. So in the meanwhile, beta, this might take a certain time to get healthy. Automatically, this will be done. So in the meanwhile, this is working. So let's try to read the further. We'll come back to this portion in a while. जब ये healthy हो जाएगा, so health is 0, unhealthy is 1. So we need to check it on the later stage. ठीक? उतने देर में let's try to reach the next one. Auto scaling में, auto scaling new rules is done. Scaling custom metrics. Brain dump. So this is what point we were discussing already. Scaling policies can be on CPU network and can be moved to the custom metrics or based upon a schedule if you know the vistas pattern. So brain dump means the policies that you are going to create for either based upon the CPU usage or the network that is flowing in to the network of traffic that is flowing into the EC instances. Based upon that, you can have, or you can even have the custom metrics that is based upon a particular schedule. The schedule, like if I know that every Friday evening I'll have a particular number of users that are going to come in. So based upon forecasting, based upon the assumption only, I can have the brain dump sessions that can be there. Okay. The next one is auto scaling group use a launch configuration or the launch template. So beta, this is one and the same thing. Earlier in the this is deprecated. पहले हम उसको क्या बोलते थे? Launch configuration. Now we call it as a launch template in the newer version. Meaning is same. Launch templates we have already seen how we can create the notes with the help of the launch template. Okay. Then the next thing is to update an automatic scaling group, you must provide a new launch configuration of the launch template. We have seen it. IAM roles attached to auto scaling group will get assigned to the EC2 instances. Whatever roles and responsibilities, policies that you are going to attach to the users, it will automatically will be reflected to EC2 instances. And of course, ये हमने starting में discuss किया था that automatic scaling groups, this is free of cost. But whatever services within this automatic scaling group you are going to use, it will incur some of the chances. You pay for the underlying resources that is being launched. So creation of this group is going to be free, but in that case, you need to pay for the all the underlying resources. Okay. So that is not free. Then having instances under an ASG means that if they get terminated for whatever reason, auto scaling group will automatically create a new instances as a replacement, extra safety. Now let's suppose you have 100 instances. Okay, now while working, because eventually and onto the servers, physical data centers, these are going to be the physical devices. Now if any of the instance is out of date, or if it is not healthy, or if it is not working, automatic scaling group is correspondingly better. If two instances are down, automatic scaling group will be created two new EC2 instances just to match the requirement. Okay, so automatically अगर कोई चीज terminate हो जाती है because of any reasons, if it is not working fine, so automatically it is going to create the another one as a replacement because of the safety. Okay, now ASG can be terminating instances marked as unhealthy by an load balances. Now it can terminate, automatic scaling group can terminate the instances which can be marked as the unhealthy by the elastic load balancer. So this is the elastic load balancer, and hence replace them. So it can replace the instances. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Auto scaling groups, dynamic scaling policies. So we have the auto scaling groups. But let's take a 5 to 7 minutes break, then we'll come back. Okay, take a break of 5 minutes and then we'll come back. Okay, beta, I'm audible. Vishal is saying, sir, my target group shows healthy. Yes, beta, it will show healthy. And let's see if we have got कहाँ गया हमारा. Yes, it is healthy and it has automatically changed to the healthy. Okay, let's move on here. And health status has changed to healthy. So that means my demo ASG, my instance is going to be an healthy. So automatically, because why it doesn't generally takes this much time, because beta we have written the boot script, so it takes some time to get it cleared. So it will be there. So anytime, so while you are doing this, might be the case, lot of students or lot of users generally stuck here. उनका बेटा ये जो instance है ये unhealthy ही रहता है. So there can be only two reasons. I have told you earlier as well. But the first reason can be if the bootstrap script that I have pasted in the chat area, if that is improper, अगर वो गलत है, then the instance will be unhealthy. Or the second case will be your security group. The second case can be the since we have used the launch wizard one. So within this launch wizard one, if I'll click on here, and if you do not have the inbound rule like I have SSH, HTTP, and HTTPS. So if this is not proper, even in that case also, you have this. The error can be there. Okay. So these are the two cases. But give me a second. Okay, so let me share the screen. But I'm sorry for the disturbance. So we were discussing the security groups. This is template is done. Target group, we have seen this, and we have got one instance that is healthy, and let's create on this instance. We have got all the information related to this. Okay. Now the next thing is we need to check that we have created the automatic load balancer. Okay, auto scaling group is already done, demo ESG, and this is the done. So one instance is there that has automatically created from what, from the template, from my demo template ke saath we have got this instance that is automatically created. Load balancer, which load balancer is associated but an automatic scaling group is already attached to the load balancers, that is demo ANG. Okay, now we'll move to the, let's see if a instance is working or not. So we'll move to the load balancer. So this is load balancer. Let's click on load balancer and see we have already got the demo ASG load balancer. Okay, so availability zone is all this given, is all this provided here. So let's click on automatic this load balancer. Here have the description, listeners, यहाँ से add listeners कर सकते हैं. I have told in the last class as well. So monitoring is there, but we are supposed to find, I am looking for the DNS name. But there are two ways to assess this. First one is you can open the instance, and from instance you can move to the public IP address. I can pick up the public IP address here and I can attach it from here. I can open the instance from here. Now I have already executed the boot script, so this will work absolutely fine. But I'm not going to do this. So I'll be within my load balancer. I'll try to execute my load balancer and see if this DNS is working. So I'm going to copy this from here, demo ASG1 AP South 1B ELB AWS, and let's move and execute it here. So yes, this is working fine. So hello world from IP address 172.31.2.88. That means, what does that mean? Better, that means my load balancer is also working fine, and my auto scaling group within which this instance is created, my demo ASG, my template, this is also working fine. Okay, so this is also working fine. Now the next step is let's try to understand the next one. Now, before I move on to the next thing, auto scaling demo ASG. Now I need to teach you this. This is very interesting feature. Try to look onto this automatic scaling. Automatic scaling बहुत अच्छा feature है. This is the dynamic scaling, predictive scaling, and the scheduled action. So let's first of all in theoretical try to understand what is this automatic scaling. Then I'll try to create a scaling and then try to explain this. So let's move to the auto scaling groups. Okay, so this is the auto scaling groups, automatically scaling, dynamic, predictive, and the scheduled. So let's try to understand first of all here auto scaling groups. And beta will have a dynamic scaling, target scaling, simple, and the scheduled. Okay, so this is very important because you can scale as per the automatic. Now the name indicates it is auto scaling. Now auto scaling means that tomorrow if my load is going to increase, since we were taking the example of the Friday evening, so let's suppose today is Friday and today evening automatically my instance, one instance I've created, it should increase to 2 or it should increase to 3. Okay, so that should happen. So for that, there are different ways in which the automatic scaling is going to be performed. The first one is the target tracking scaling. This is the most simple and easy to set up. Target tracking scaling. Example, I want to average this automatic scaling good CPU users to stay around 40%. That means I have set the target. What is the target? Target is the 40%. Now target tracking means it will keep on tracking the CPU usage 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 35%, 39%, 40%. So it is tracking the target that I have set. As soon as the CPU users will comes to the 40%, new instance is going to be launched. This is the easiest one. This is the most simple and the easiest way to set up, जिसको हम बोलते हैं target tracking scaling. Okay. Second one is the simple step scaling. Okay, simple step scaling will be performed with the help of the trigger alarm. Okay, trigger alarm matlab when a CloudWatch alarm is triggered, then scaling is going to be performed. Example, if CPU usage is greater than 70%, then immediately add 2 units or 2 instances should be launched. Or when you'll have a CloudWatch alarm triggered, example, if CPU uses drops less than 30%, then remove one of the unit, then remove 1 unit. So this, the step scaling means that you can step up or step down the scaling with the help of the triggered alarm. So this is the second point. थर्ड वन इज द scheduled action. जैसे कि मेरे को पता है बेटा, नाउ इज IPL मैच इज गोइंग टू बी देयर on Friday evening 8 p.m. So most of the users are going to tune into Disney Hotstar app. So I will be increasing the number of instances. I'll be increasing because number of users will be increasing that time. So that is the scheduled action based upon the anticipation. I am going to assume बेटा ये जो scheduled action है ये किस पे काम करते हैं, ये करते हैं एंटीसिपेशन पे. हम फ्यूचर को प्रिडिक्ट करने की कोशिश करते हैं. वी आर ट्राइंग टू एंटीसिपेट द फ्यूचर that this might happen in the future, and based upon that we are going to perform the scaling option. So the scheduling action, I'll say that okay, at Friday 8 p.m. add 3 instances and try to keep these 3 instances till Monday morning 9 p.m. So on Friday 8 p.m. 2 more instances will be launched. It will be live for 2 days, and the Monday morning automatically when there will be 9 a.m. the 2 instances will be shut down. So that is based upon the scheduled. We are going to schedule the launch of the instance, okay, based upon the anticipation. A scaling based known as the usage pattern. Based upon the previous usage pattern, we can assume, we can anticipate the actions. Next one is the example, increase the minimum capacity to 10 at 5 p.m. on Fridays. Okay, increase. Now let's suppose my minimum capacity is 5. So increase the minimum capacity, उसको बढ़ा के कितना कर दो 10 at 5 p.m. on Fridays. हमने क्या करती है बेटा, this is called the scheduling. Okay, so there are 3 different ways of auto scaling. First one is the target based. Now if the CPU usage is 40%, if based upon the network usage you can have it, based upon the number of usage you can scale it, based upon the vCPUs you can do this. Okay, so based upon the everything you can have the target tracking. Then we have the step scaling based upon the triggered and the CloudWatch. The third one is the scheduled action in which we are going to anticipate. Now auto scaling groups, predictive scaling, but a predictive scaling falls under the scheduled action. So in this predictive scaling continuously forecast, load and the scheduled scaling ahead. Now बेटा हम इसमें कौन सी चीज एग्जीक्यूट नहीं कर सकते, this cannot be executed now. Why we cannot execute scheduled action now? Better because that we need to anticipate. I need to have few of the instances. मेरे पास 5 या 10 instances होने चाहिए that are live from last 10 days or 15 days. मेरे पास कुछ एक previous 10 दिन का data होना चाहिए. Then only I can schedule the action. Right now immediately हम अभी instance create करके अभी उस पे scheduled action perform नहीं कर सकते. So this is not possible immediately onto the fresh instances. Why so? Because we need to have the historical data. We need to have the historical data with us, and this historical data is going to provide us the predictive analysis. Predictive analysis हमें ये पता है when the graph is going to down, it immediately shoots up. So whenever the graph is going to be down, so immediately generate the forecast and schedule scaling action. You are going to load it. Okay, so that's the simple predictive analysis. Okay, now comes the good matrices to scale on. And on what particular matrices, if you remember at the starting of this class, we have read about the matrices to scale. So CPU utilization is one matrix, average CPU utilization across your instances like 40%. This is one of the matrix. Request count per target, यानी कि एक इंस्टेंट कितने रिक्वेस्ट को मतलब सॉल्व कर रहा है. लेट्स सपोज 100. okay, request count per target, if it is 100, so that is going to be the maximum capacity for instance. But in this case, what is the request per count? Can anyone tell me what is the request per target in this case? Yes, but what is the request in this case? पर टारगेट इस केसेस में कितनी रिक्वेस्ट है? नो आंसर. बेटा 3. सो इस इंस्टेंट के पास एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम कितनी रिक्वेस्ट है? 1 2 3. इस इंस्टेंस के पास कितनी रिक्वेस्ट है? 1 2 3. इस इंस्टेंस के पास कितनी है? 1 2 3. सो वी हैव पर इंस्टेंस रिक्वेस्ट काउंट target value in this case is 3. So you can have the load balancer users is going to send the request, and maximum I have set that each instance should be capable of processing three units at a single point of time. The third matrix that can I use is the average network in and network out. How many users are signing in for Disney Hotstar? Network in kitna hai aur network out kitna hai? Based upon that, we can have the scale in operations can be performed. And the last one is any custom metric based upon the business to business and whatever business we are dealing in. Okay. Then auto scaling groups, scaling cooldowns. Now, better, this is also very important point. Now, after scaling, okay, without reading this slide, let me tell you one example. Better, let's suppose you have the auto scaling feature enabled. So immediately you scale in for the 5 applications, then you shut down 2 applications, then you again launch the 3 applications. But there is a cool down period that is required in order to assess how much instances are currently running. बेटा अगर आप जल्दी जल्दी में आपने 5 इंस्टेंसेस को लॉन्च कर दिया, फिर 2 को शट डाउन कर दिया, 3 इंस्टेंस को फिर लॉन्च कर दिया इमीडिएटली, so AWS needs some few seconds of time in order to register that what is the current number of instances running. उसको हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? कूल डाउन पीरियड. कूल डाउन पीरियड ऐसा पीरियड होता है, दिस इज द पीरियड विद इन विच यू कैन नाइदर लॉन्च एन इंस्टेंस and during which you cannot put down the instance, neither you can terminate nor you can launch. Why do we need to have a cooldown period? So that AWS can count what is the current scenario, how many instances are currently running. Okay, now read this cooldown period. Default cooldown effect, this is a 300 second. I think this is a 300 second cooldown period. Yes, default is 300 second का मतलब कितना हो गया? 5 minutes. So default cooldown time is 5 minutes. Scaling action occur. So launch or template, if it is not along, this is going to terminate the instance. If it is, the cooldown period is in effect. If it is no, it is going to terminate. If it is yes, ignore the action. Okay, so it is going to ignore. After the scaling activity happens, you are in a cool down period for the default 300 seconds. During the cool down period, automatic scaling group will not launch or terminate additional instances. But this is important to understand. Someone can ask you, why do we need to have a cool downs? What is the cool down period? But this is the period, this is a few seconds during which neither you can launch the instance nor you can terminate the instance. And why do we need to have this cooldown period? Because better, if you'll have consecutively, if you're going to launch the instances and if you are going to terminate, it will take certain times to reflect. So AWS को कुछ time चाहिए होता है so that it can register and give you the exact information how much instances are currently running. So cooldown एक ऐसा freeze period होता है, this is freezing, so within which you cannot launch and terminate the instances. Now advice is use a read-only yes AMI to reduce the configuration time in order to be saving requests faster, reduce cooldown period. Okay. Now for suppose you want to, you have the application जहां पे बेटा you feel that 300 seconds is lot too much. You can 300 seconds means you cannot wait for 5 minutes. So in that case, use the AMI machine image. Like we use the Amazon Linux 2. Instead of that, use different AMI image, and you can reduce this cooldown effect. Okay. So if you don't want to have it for 300 seconds, you can reduce it to 100 seconds. So you can reduce as per your requirement. Okay. So this is another point, ASD for the solution architect. So we'll discuss that in a bit. Okay. Let's try to move in and see some practical. Okay. So this is done. So beta, this is move to the auto scaling group. So auto scaling group, we have got one of the demo auto scaling group. Click on the demo auto scaling group, and this is the one and let's first of all we need to increase the capacity. But first of all we need to have the desired minimum capacity, then we'll move to the automatic scaling. So let's first of all change these values. So I'm going to change this desired capacity. Uh, let's have the desired capacity. I want to have it 2. Minimum capacity is 1. Let's have the maximum capacity, that is again going to be 2. Okay. So what does that mean? That means the one instance is minimum at every point of time, even if the traffic is there or not. At least एक instance जो है आपका वो हमेशा run होना चाहिए. Desired capacity means that normally cases, if the load increases, my capacity should run from 1 to 2. तो ये 1 से 2 तक jump हो सकती है, and that is the maximum capacity. आप इसको 3 तक भी लेके जा सकते हैं, और maximum अगर 2 से भी ज्यादा होती है, you can move it to 3, not more than that. So I'm going to update this capacity and then move on to the automatic scaling. So this is updated. Let's move on to the automatic scaling. Okay, so since we have desired capacity is going to be 2, but how many instances do we have generally? So if I'll have one instance here, now you'll see second instance is automatically created. Because why? Because the desired capacity has changed it to 2. So the instance management, instead of 1, now you'll have the second instance. You have created the second instance, and if I'll show you the activity, now beta read this activity. So ये हमने पहले पढ़ लिया था. We have read this, that instance was started in response to the difference between the desired and the actual capacity increase from 0 to 1. तो ये capacity कहां से increase हुई? From 0 to 1. Now you will read once again. अभी के लिए now 732, अभी just now 732 we have increased the desired capacity. Now constraint minimum 1, maximum 3, but the desired capacity is going to be 2. Okay, if the desired capacity is going to be 2 and the capacity is changed from 1 to 2, so automatically beta here you will find out that we are going to have 2 instances. Okay, so automatically a one new instance is going to be launched because the desired capacity is going to be 2. That's the benefit of using this one. Okay, desired capacity is from 1 to 2. Now coming on to the automatic scaling. Now beta, now what we are trying to do is, अब हम ये टेस्ट कैसे करेंगे? And if you'll see but a simple and step scaling, ये भी अभी के लिए we are not going to do. We are going to use the simple tracking. I want to use the average CPU stay around to 40%. What I'm trying to do, बेटा अब मुझे क्या करना है, मैं CPU का यूजेज जो है उसको इंक्रीज करने की कोशिश करूंगा. And when the CPU usage will be increased, and then we'll try to observe क्या मेरा जब CPU usage 40% से ज्यादा होता है, whether my instance 3 automatically get launched or not. Okay, so this is what we need to see, that if the CPU usage is going to increase, whether it is going to be launched or not. Okay, so I'll go to the automatic scaling. So scheduled action, but are not possible right now. So scheduled के लिए we need to have the previous historical data. I have told you. Then we have the predictive scaling. So not possible dynamic scaling, or we can okay, dynamic scaling also not possible. We'll try to do with the predictive scaling. Okay, so we'll try to do with the predictive scaling. So let's try to click on the create predictive scaling application. Okay, I'm going to create on this one, and scale based on the forecast. So let's try to turn it on. Scaling policy name. Okay, and before that let's go to the load balancers. इसको देख ले चला के एक बार. Load balancer demo ASV1. So how many instances are connected with this one? Okay. Now, beta, you will see every time I'm going to refresh this page. So demo ASG, I have every time I'm going to get a response from the different instance ID. ऐसा क्यों है? Because my elastic load application load balancer is going to work. Now earlier I used to have only one instance. This time I have got two different instances, and every time the application load balancer is going to be giving me response from the different. So okay, so this is working absolutely fine. Okay, then we'll move on to the predictive scaling, and we'll try to increase the utilization. CPU utilization को we'll try to increase. Okay, even before that एक और चीज प्रैक्टिस कर लेते हैं. अभी बेटा हमने देखा that we have got two instances automatically. Let's try to see if I'm going to reduce the capacity. अब हम क्या करेंगे, desired capacity को 2 से वापस घटा के 1 कर देते हैं. Let's try to do it 1. Okay, let's try to keep it 2. Okay, desired capacity is again reduced to 1. Let's update this. Desired capacity is going to be 1. Let's go to the activity and see this is in progress. Can you see this is in progress? So that means I am going to update. So the minimum 1, maximum 2, desired capacity is 1. So changing the desired capacity from 2 to 1. So ये automatically scale down. It is going to remove one of the instance. This is going to remove one of the instance. Okay, so this is still in progress. If we'll go to the instance management, you will see one of the instance is still in service and the another instance is terminating. जैसे बेटा ये terminate होगा, so if you refresh this one, so every time I refresh, see बेटा सिर्फ एक ही instance है जहां से मेरे को response आ रहा है, because दूसरा जो instance है it is automatically terminated. Okay, so this is terminated. Done. Now let's try to start with the scaling one. Okay, so this automatic scaling. So first of all, let's try to do the scheduled actions. Even though we are not going to better do this scheduled actions, I have told you we need to have historic data, but let's try to see this. So you can give any of the name, desired capacity, but a minimum, what is the provide at least one value for the desired minimum and the maximum capacity. So desired capacity, I need to have 50 instances, minimum, let's suppose 10 instances, maximum, let's suppose 100 instances. Reoccurrence, when do you want to have it? But every 1 week, every day, every 1 hour, every 30 minutes, every 5 minutes, or you can have the different values. When do you want to have this scheduled action running? Okay, you can decide that. Time zone given, specific start time. आप ये चाहते हो कि Friday evening को I can give the time Friday evening at what time this schedule action needs to be performed. तो आप यहाँ पे date and time चीजें यहाँ पे आप mention कर सकते हो. So this is what the scheduled analysis is. But we need to have a historic data, so we cannot do this. So let's try to do the predictive scaling. Okay. So in this scale based upon the forecast, let's click on this one. Okay, and let's try to give the name CPU utilization based upon this one. So you'll have a lot of option, but this predictive scaling can happen based on lot of parameter. CPU utilization, network bytes में, application load balancer पे कितनी request आ रही हैं, custom metric pair. So you can have lot of options based upon which you can have this. So I'll keep it as a CPU utilization, and the target percent is also given, that as long when it is reaches the 50%, so I need to launch the instance. When let's suppose current instance ka 50% data, if it is CPU utilization is 50%, I need to relaunch it. Okay. Then we have the additional scaling settings, that pre-launch instance 5 minutes. So control the time when the new instances are launched to ensure that they are ready to handle the traffic. So that time is already there. Okay. So whenever it is going to increase from the 50%, a new instance is going to be running there. So let's try to create this. Okay, so you can create this, but let's suppose, let's move to the, I have shown you how predictive scaling is going to be performed. Let's see upon the dynamic one. Okay, so in dynamic you will have the policy target tracking scaling. So have you see this target tracking scaling? I have told you this is the easiest one, and we can see this as well. Policy is the target tracking, step scaling, yeah, simple scaling. All three things we have studied. So I'm going to use the target tracking. Target tracking means it is going to track the target of the CPU usage, and scaling policy name target tracking, metric type average CPU utilization, target value is 50%. So all the values are given, and let's have the simple scaling. Okay, let's have the scaling name, and let's have the CloudWatch alarm is there. We can create the CloudWatch alarm by clicking on this one, and we can take the action, and in this action we can see whether you want to add an instance, whether you want to remove an instance, or you want to set. Let's suppose if I click on add 2 instance capacity units, or the percentage of group. Percentage of group means if you have 10 instance, or 10% of the instances already occupied, so play percentage of group के basis पे भी you can add the instances, or you can use this, or you can remove the 2 instances when you have the particular action here, or you can set it to the certain level that whenever let's suppose the instance, let's suppose Disney Hotstar is there, if the target is going to be more than 50%, set the number of instances to 5 or 50 or 100. So you can specify that value as well. Okay, so this information is already present here. And if you move on to the step scaling, you will see step scaling, take an action, add, remove, or set, and kitne capacity units you can have this, and these are the steps that you can have here, and the create a CloudWatch alarm. Okay, and if you'll see in the target tracking, you'll have the target value only, so you don't have the all the values that you want to set. Metric type is average CPU. Which metric you are going to use? We have seen 5 to 6 different types of metric. Number one is average CPU utilization. Okay, then average network in bytes, average network out bytes, yeah, application load balancer. You can choose any, but we are obviously going to keep the target the value is average CPU utilization. let's keep the value if it is exceeding 40%. Okay, so if it is going to exceed the 40%, and I want to uh, start with the new instance. Okay, now you will see here dynamic scaling policy created or added successfully, target tracking policy enabled, and required to maintain the average CPU utilization. मतलब कि यहाँ पे average CPU utilization will be maintained 40%. As long as it is 40%, no instance is going to be triggered. But जैसे instance का utilization 40% से ज़्यादा होगा, we are going to automatically a new instance will be launched. Okay. Now instance take an action, add or remove capacity units as required. Okay, instance need 300 seconds to warm up before including to metrics. So this is the, what is this 300 second? Beta, what is this 300 second? This is the, what is this 300 second? Beta, yes, speak up. Can you see it? What is this 300 second? Beta, are you guys with me? What is 300 second? This is the cool down period before, in which you will not be able to launch any instance need, and enabled, that is scaled in. Okay, so every setting is here, and let's move on to the next one. So I'm going to edit some of the, I'll move, this is done from this side. Let's move on to the details, and I am going to change the values here. Desired value, minimum value, related to maximum value, related to 3. Okay, let's update these values. Okay, now every time the CPU utilization is going to be more than the 40%, new instances required to be created. Now I'll have the one already with me, and let's move on to the monitoring and see what is the CPU utilization. Now beta, if you'll see, now the common sense says we have created one instance. अभी हमें क्या पता है कि एक instance तो है, लेकिन now my that instance is not working, वो तो idle है. So how it is going to be having the CPU utilization more than 40%? तो उसके लिए we need to stress out the instance. तो मुझे इस EC2 instance के ऊपर I need to perform some action, ताकि जो इसका CPU utilization है वो 40% से increase हो जाए. Now as of now you'll see we have no data because the utilization for that particular CPU is not greater than 40. So now the point is how we can have the increased load on EC2. Okay, यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं है. So how we can perform this? EC2. If I'll move on to EC2, you'll see. Okay. Now this is the CPU utilization. But see, CPU utilization is only this much, 3.72%. Okay, so CPU utilization is not more than 40%. So we need to do something. So by doing so, our utilization is going to be increased. So what we can do is, for that purpose, I'll move on to the instance management, go to my instance. Okay. So I have moved to the instance, and let's try to connect this using EC2, and let's try to connect. Okay, so I'm going to Google it here. So I'll be doing install stress Amazon Linux Linux 2. You'll see. So the very first is I have done install stress Amazon Linux 2 because बेटा मेरे को भी bootstrap की वो scripts याद नहीं है. Simply Google it. Git के ऊपर आपको install stress utility on Amazon Linux 2. Click on this one. Okay, so पहले ऊपर मेरे को मिल गया. This is the command. I'm going to copy this sudo Amazon Linux extras install epely, copy this one and move to our instance and then try to paste it. I'm going to paste this. Done. Then this is done. Copy the second one, move in here. So let's copy the second statement, then install yum stress y. So with these commands, my instance is going to be shooted with the processing. So I'm going to installing some of the things here on EC2 instance.
Sir, please tell me to chat box.
Someone is speaking. Yes, beta, do you have a doubt? Anyone?
Sir, please send the code in chat box.
Vishal, your voice is not clear. Beta, type in the query section. Don't leave the meeting, beta. I'm yet to take the attendance. Nobody
Sir,
should leave the meeting. Let me take an attendance.
सर चैट बॉक्स में कोड भेज दो.
बेटा मैंने गूगल किया हुआ है. I've just Google it. Don't leave the meeting. Let me take an attendance.